Welcome, friends, back to another episode. It's been a minute since I have been here live with you. I am super excited to be back. I have been not feeling my greatest for the last 3 weeks, and I'm excited to be here with you. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. I have some news I want to share with every one of you. But before we begin, I want to just say real quick, I have seen more people subscribing to my channel. I just wanted to say thank you, specifically here on YouTube. I also wanted to just say thank you to all the listeners worldwide. I'm actually blown away by how many downloads I've received for the last individual horoscopes that I put out on my podcast platforms. And we are definitely increasing our reach here. I know my team, which is my social media manager, and I were just really excited to see that. This has been a long time creation, and I have been battling a lot of sort of situations in my life that have been kind of crazy, you guys. Not gonna lie, they have been really crazy. And now with my health stuff, sometimes I'm having a little bit of a setback. So when I see that you guys are subscribing, that you are listening from all over the place, it just brings me so much joy because I know that this information is helping you. It is making you maybe think about your life in a way where it is helpful. Some of you have already reached out to me on Instagram messages and you've let me know, how the individual horoscopes are helping you. So I'm just so happy to hear that. That's why I'm here. This is what this work is meant to create on my platform. So thank you for sharing that. If you're new here, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you are going to like what I have to offer on my channel. My name is Aylin Sky. I focus on astrology and numerology, and I love to give predictions for the immediate future. I also like doing other spiritual content, and you will see that more of that in 2023. I want to start out today's podcast in this order, just to kind of give you a little bit of a preview. Timestamps will be below this video or the episode podcast, and you can just kind of click forward to what you need to hear. But we're going to cover a little bit of an update. I want to share some stuff that I'm dealing with my health right now. And then we're going to go into some big news that I have, some changes that we're creating on my channel. And why I'm creating those changes. And then we're going to move into just a brief collective overview of what is happening right now, what's happening in the sky, where are we at just over the next couple of weeks. And then we'll go into some individual horoscopes. So I hope that you stick around all the way to the end. If you're here in the chat, let me know where you're tuning in from so that I can kind of see where you're from. And I love hearing from you guys. So anything you want to share with me, it's greatly appreciated. If you want to follow me on my Instagram, thank you so much for following me there. If you already are, it is now changed to a different name. It is Aylin Sky Astro. So if you want to follow me on my Instagram, that is the way that you would do it. Just type in Aylin Sky Astro and you can follow me there as well, where I put out more of a short version of the astrological predictions or some inspiration astrology wise. If you want to follow me, you can follow me there. All right, you guys. So I want to share with you guys a little bit about my health. Now, for the ones that don't know, I used to own a yoga studio. I owned it for 8 years, and this was in Colorado. And while I lived in Colorado, I learned a lot in that almost a decade worth of yoga teachings and people program. And then when the eclipses came through in 2000, and I think they started kind of really hitting up my chart. Some of the eclipses in 2019, the beginning of 2019, I started having some major changes occurring with my home and family, or the definition of home and family. And what I mean by that specifically is my upbringing and the story And we will discover more in depth about this because I have a lot to share about some of these life stories that I have. And perhaps some of you will actually relate to it. Um, so when the eclipses were moving through my houses where the definition of home and family were changing, I'm a Libra rising, by the way, for the ones that don't know. I realized, wow, this is a time where my perspective is changing, and what I have been building my life upon, which had to do a lot with the yoga background, I started to realize yoga wasn't all it. And I didn't want to own the studio actually anymore because I always knew that I wanted to sell it. And so I ended up selling the yoga studio. And that was a whole nother situation because, whenever you're letting something go that you've had for a really long time, it's kind of like your baby, it's hard to let it go. And it was a major shift that I was experiencing. And so we decided that it was also time to move. And my husband, he is in the military. So he was scheduled to do a bunch of trainings for 6+ months. So we decided that we were going to move to Florida. Well, I was going to move back to Florida because I used to live in Florida. I lived in Florida for 10 years previously before my whole journey in Colorado had started. And I wanted to come back here because my son's father is here. And so we wanted to be closer to his entire high school experience with the whole family. We wanted everybody to be around because, these are prime times, and it's a really important time to make sure that we're all sort of together, cheering him on and being there for him and everything he needs. My son today is 16, for the ones that don't know. And yeah, so we decided to come back. When we moved back here, this was about, I would say, August of 2019. I decided that, let's just move into an apartment that's going to be close to everything until we decide what we were going to do next. I picked out a place for us to move into. My husband kind of took off during that time, kind of helped me to move in, but then he took off to go off to his training. And yeah, I moved into his temporary apartment. We only had a lease for a year until we were going to figure out, are we going to buy a house next? What are we doing? So when I moved into this apartment, the first unit that they gave me was the only unit that was available for the kind of apartment or the bedroom space or the space that I wanted. And so it still wasn't the kind of space that I needed. And so I needed to downsize. And I was in communication with the office people. Hey, can you give me a different place? Can you give me a place that has more rooms and kind of, I need some more space. And so they were like, well, the unit that you're in right now, we can move you up to a different unit. It'll be available in 4 weeks if you don't mind moving all of your stuff again. And I was willing to do that because I wanted to make sure that I had enough space for my astrology stuff. And, we weren't able to take everything from Colorado with us. So we had stuff in storage, but we brought a good amount of things with us. So I wanted to make sure I was able to get everything, sort of situated and organized. And so within those 4 weeks, I accepted to move into a different unit that was on the top level. And this apartment complex was brand new, or is brand new. So we moved in there, and that is when things started to change with my health. I started to notice within 3 weeks of moving into the apartment that, I was getting sick. And then fast forward a whole year, I was hospitalized numerous times. I had started with vertigo, and then chest issues, had bronchitis that I had not had in a really long time. I noticed that I was fatigued actually more easily. I started to gain weight and then essentially lost all the weight that I gained. And I was just in a space where I was experiencing numerous different um, just health challenges. And of course, COVID hit. And so I couldn't figure out what was going on. I thought I had at some level, when COVID came around, I was still in that apartment. And so I didn't realize, that my symptoms were getting worse and worse. I was just sort of in this place where sort of brain fog started to take over. And so halfway through living in that apartment, um, I started to just sort of diminish into this place of health issues. Eventually, it became so bad that I couldn't really walk up the stairs without feeling out of breath. And I'm someone that is very active. I work out a lot, or I love moving my body. As you can imagine, in a yoga studio, you're doing quite a bit of twisting and turning and bending. And I also loved running. I loved, getting into all sorts of, you know, hiking, just all sorts of different movements because of that expression. I love that feeling. And so I wasn't able to do any of that anymore. Within that year of living there, I saw 8 specialists and nobody could figure out what was going on. In fact, one doctor just told me, there's something wrong maybe with you psychologically. And I'd never really had that kind of psychological issue. I mean, I moved through a lot of trauma in my life. That's another subject. We'll get to it. But I didn't have those types of issues. And being born and raised in Germany, you know, I I didn't I didn't relate to what he was saying to me because it wasn't something that I ever experienced growing up, and even when I moved to the United States. And so I just I don't know. It was a tough year. There's moments where I was just hoping maybe, they would tell me I had COVID, or I was hoping that they would tell me, give me an answer about what was happening with my health. And so many things were just wrong to the point where now my digestion was not properly working anymore either. As soon as I ate, I would inflame. I would have inflammatory responses all throughout my body. So the last few days in that apartment, when it was time to move out, I had, like I have right now here, a background, with wallpaper. There was a really large wall that had wallpaper up, and I had it up from the moment I moved into that new apartment. And so I put up that wallpaper to kind of create a background for all my videos. And so when we pulled the wallpaper down, the walls were black. And so it then in that moment occurred to me that I might have been sick, or my issues or my health issues were happening because we were living in a mold infected home. It didn't occur to me. I had never heard of anybody living in a mold infected home. I just knew when we pulled the wallpaper down and I saw the walls that, wow, holy shit, like I think I'm sick because of it. So I immediately stopped everything and didn't move any more of the items in that apartment into the car because I wanted to get straight to the doctor to figure out if this could have made me sick. And at the time, I was just in the beginning. I had found a new functional medicine doctor, and she was brilliant. And when I booked my appointment, she actually, she made herself available that day because it was in the morning when we discovered it. I went to her office. I told her that we discovered, mold in the walls. And I asked her, is this something that could make somebody sick? And she told me, absolutely. In fact, if you've been living there the entire time and the mold has been there the entire time, this could be the reason why you're sick. And so it was a liberating moment, but it was also a holy shit moment because I didn't know what this all meant because of all the issues that I was experiencing. And I'm just going to briefly list some of the experiences that I've had. I had static shocks. I had memory loss, 10 seconds at a time. I would be talking to my husband or somebody else, And all of a sudden, my thoughts, that they were just blank. I couldn't remember what was happening, which makes me want to cry because that's something that is really, really scary when you're going through that. Um, and so it was a really tough time. It was hard to get out of bed at times. And I was never really depressed up until I really experienced that mold illness. What I didn't realize is I was breathing in all that mold illness and it was going deep into my organs and my whole entire bloodstream, and it's a poison. Now, I want to clarify, there's different types of molds. There's mold that is on fruit, that's normal because things decay. As we learned with Saturn too, right? Things have to decay. But this type of mold is a super toxic mold. And the way that this mold gets created is through a water damage that is being created somewhere in the walls. And this particular water damage, it was in the roof. So the last floor that, I mean, the top floor that I was living in, the roof was damaged. And so Florida, as you can imagine, here, I mean, it's like buckets of water, coming down. And it was just growing. The mold was growing behind the wall in a particular area of that wall. And you can't smell some of the super molds because there are so many different types of them. And yeah, I just didn't realize it. Actually, when we discovered the mold, my husband, he was, I'm just so happy that he thought that through. He ran over to Home Depot and he got these testing kits to swap the walls. And we swapped the walls and there were 2 different types of testing kits that you can buy at Home Depot. I think one at Home Depot, one at Lowe's. I can't quite remember. But he swapped the walls, and when we sent them off and they came back, there were 3 different types of molds that we had that were categorized as dangerous. That when you're breathing them in, you can be hospitalized. And so when we found this out, it was just sort of like, wow, our whole world is just so crazy right now. I can't explain the feeling because when you're having mold, actually the best way I could describe it is you are in a horror movie. You're like in a horror movie the whole time and it just never ends. That's what it feels like. That's the best way I can describe it. And some days are better than others, and not every day is going to be consistently horrible, but they're just altogether bad because of various different types of symptoms. And you just have this decline over time because the more that you stay at home, the more that you're breathing in this toxic mold, the more it starts to, move down your organs wherever, and it starts creating an inflammatory response all over. So this toxic mold, the way it's created is through water damage, and it reacts to the filaments of the wall. So whatever is inside of the wall, it starts reacting and it creates this chemical supermold, a biotoxin that then goes into the air, and then you start, breathing it in through the olfactory system. You might even be eating some of it because it's on your food, because it's porous. And so this was really hard, okay, finding this out. What was harder was when the doctor told me that indeed I did have mold, because there's 3 ways that you test for it. And all 3 tests came back positive. Again, liberating, but also a holy shit moment. And the next step was, she told me, you have to throw everything that you own out. You can't keep anything. So whatever I owned that was in that apartment, we now had to throw it out, except for during that 48-hour period that we found all of this stuff out, my husband was gone again, and I had to now figure out how I was going to get rid of the items. And this includes everything you own, okay? From the bed to the frames to the books, whatever you own, you have to get rid of it. Why? Because it's so porous, it lives. Even if it's dead, it can get into your body. And so when you're starting the detox process, it can hold you back. And so I didn't want to risk it. I wanted to heal. I didn't know what the healing all entailed. I certainly didn't want to keep anything that was in touch with that mold. So we threw everything we owned out. We had to start from ground zero, quite literally. And for any of you that follow astrology or know what I'm talking about, this was certainly from my hereditary, pre-born chart to the chart that I have and into 2020. This was my third Saturn Pluto conjunction that I was going through. And it was going through my fourth house. This particular, Saturn Pluto conjunction that we all just went through. This one was going through my fourth house, and I didn't know exactly what it entailed, honestly. But it was the mold illness for me in particular. So it's a rough time, guys. When I started that detox process, which is not linear, they tell you it can take up to 18 months and plus. You don't know. Everybody's body is different. Everybody is going to detox very differently. And not too many doctors actually specialize in it. So I started to detox me about 9 months before I could just kind of get back out into the world. Okay. I was doing a few things here and there, but the stuff that I was doing, like teaching a yoga class, it took all my energy. And again, not every day was the same. Some days I was better, some days I was less better. But in the process of detoxing, there's a lot of stuff that I have gone through, which they tell you, they sit you down, they prepare you, they tell you, hey, like when you're detoxing, you're going to go through all the symptoms that you have, but a little bit stronger because stuff's going to come up, mold is really smart. It builds a biofilm around it, which I didn't know. And so you have to bind it in order to get it out of your body. And so it was a process. So fast forward to today. One of the things that happens, which makes me a little bit inconsistent on my channel and inconsistent in some of my work, is that when I get overly tired, when I extend, because right now I'm still learning on how to really use my body and my energy levels for this, and when I don't sleep properly, when I don't pay attention, when I get stressed out, when there's stuff going on, and there is stuff going on in my life right now that I'm trying to sort out, I still have some symptoms. In particular, the symptoms that I'm still dealing with have to do with my gut. In particular, right now, I can't really eat whatever I want. I love food. I have my moon in Taurus. I love food. But I don't really experience a lot of joy eating right now because whatever I eat, it's a risk if that thing is going to inflame me, because my gut is completely and entirely off right now. We're still trying to figure out what's going on with that. Also, I'm experiencing this pressure on the right side of my gut, and it comes and goes. It's not something that's constant. But when I get sick, which is what happened a few weeks ago, when I start getting sick or I start, having like just being overly stressed or feeling burned out, and then if I get sick on top of it, this inflammatory response or this pressure on the right side starts to get bigger, and it is very uncomfortable, and my whole body starts to swell. It's almost like a edema, like a swelling that starts to occur. And so I am under care with a physician, actually 2 physicians that are excellent. And I am now seeing also a specialist for my gut. And there's going to be several procedures that I will go through to see if I have any kind of, liver damage or anything that is damaged from this mold, because again, it's a poison, it's a toxin in the body. And once you cleanse from it, you still have to work on healing. And again, nothing is linear. Everybody is on a different, with not everybody is the same. Some people heal faster and some people don't. And then some people, what the mold does is that as you're cleansing, some other issues that were there that may have been underlying, they come up to the surface as well. So right now, what I'm trying to figure out is what's going on with my gut. And so I might be, and I don't know, we're going to find out. I'm going into these procedures from this week into next week. And so hopefully we will have some more answers as to what this is all about and why I have these swellings going on and that are quite sometimes to a level where I just have to sit down. Like I need to sit down. I need to adapt. I need to slow down. I can't continue going on the way that I was. And astrology is not the only thing that I do. I also have another job. Actually, I have two other jobs. But I am trying to stay in my life. I'm trying to stay plugged in without completely taking myself away from everything. So that's what I'm dealing with, you guys. Okay. If you don't see me sometimes on here, or if you find that, one episode comes out after another, it's just because like the energy is great and things are going well. And I'm trying to get to a place with my body where I'm being consistent. So I'm going to try not to cry. Holding back the tears. This is something that has been really life changing for me. On some levels, it has made me so much more spiritual, and it has made me realize what actually the work of astrology is all about. And it's just so real. The stuff that is happening in our charts, these are real things, even though we're trying to always figure out what the next step is and what the next themes are. There are some things that we just have to move through. We have to learn and we need to move through them. And this includes our health. It includes, certain aspects in our chart, whether it's relationships, whether it's money, whatever it is, the transits are here to let us know that we are to move through certain chapters and certain lessons in order to understand the whys, get better and to be stronger and to learn the lessons and take in the changes that we are maybe in that moment are to go through. And that's certainly something that is happening for me. So I wanted to just share that with you guys. It's been incredibly difficult because in my spirit, who I am is anything but these health challenges that I'm going through at this time. So it's really hard to slow down and to not come on here and just to continue. It's just really heartbreaking in those moments. But I'm learning how to kind of, be in the flow of things. My commitment is always to continue to bring you the way in which astrology is moving and so that you guys, are prepared. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is what has occurred to me. This Mars in Gemini is moving through my, ninth house right now. And I am reviewing the bigger picture. I'm reviewing my life. I am, reviewing sort of what I am communicating, what I am just my projects in general and the vision that I have had for the astrology platform that I've built. And so one of the things that I've realized is with Pluto moving through Capricorn and finishing up before it's going to move into Aquarius, one of the things that's happening right now for me is the truth about what I actually want to build. It's no longer aligning with my past. And so Uprise Astrology was born out of Uprise Yoga. Uprise Yoga was born during a time of my life where I was going through a horrible divorce and a horrible custody fight. And Uprise Yoga was born during that time. And much more to the story will come later. I will share more. I'm trying to open up more, share more with you guys about my life. And so Uprise Yoga was really the beginning of my own personal, uprising, and also the uprising of the people that really came to the space, the people who came there to become yoga teachers, who came there to heal, themselves. And we had a great and also a very tumultuous, 8 years because of just some personal stuff that I was, going through. And it was a really great time that taught me a lot about leadership and what it really takes, what it really takes to be a leader and what kind of leader I would want to be. There was a lot of personal development that was happening during that time. And what I'm realizing though now, especially because of all the health stuff that I'm going through, that is a portion of my life that is holds true and has taught me a lot, but doesn't hold true today anymore. Because I've changed so much from that time. And so Uprise Astrology Podcast is going away. Okay, Uprise Astrology Podcast, no more. It's going to be Aylin Sky Astro. And the reason for that is because that's me, who I've become today out of all the things that I've learned over the past, few decades in my life. I'm just like, yeah, this is me. This is who I am. My name is Aylin Sky. I am, doing astrology, and we're not in the uprising portion anymore. We've already, many of you out there, if you look back into your life right now, you may have, risen out of a lot of situations in your life. The next phase, especially with Pluto moving into Aquarius, is going to be a lot about a reinvention of our life, but it doesn't have to do necessarily with a rising out of a situation. And so this definitely is true for me. It's a time in my life where I realized I have to close the chapter to the past, because that's a part of my life that has served me well, but I'm ready for something, brand new and fresh. So you have maybe noticed, if you were on Instagram or if you were on the podcast already, or if you were on this channel, that the channel name has changed. And so moving forward, you're going to start to see many more changes, some to the background, some on, of course, the website. And then you will also see, just in general, everything will pop up as Aylin Sky Astro. Okay. I'm excited for this. I have a brand new vision as to what I would like to create. And I'm just excited and praying that I will, be well enough to do all of those things. And, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to continue. Okay. So these are the changes right now. These are the life updates that I wanted to share with you guys. I will keep you updated and informed as I have more information on my health as well. But I'm also trying to do a better job, which I realized I have not been, to kind of share more about myself and the stuff that is happening in my life as well, because the astrology is definitely very real. I am moving and finishing up the past, especially childhood trauma, and especially, now health stuff that I'm moving through is making me really think deeply about what my legacy is all about and what I want to leave behind, for the betterment of our humanity, for the betterment of us being here. What do I want to really leave behind? So that is what I'm moving through, you guys. Okay. If you are, again, joining in the chat, let me know where you're joining in from. How are you doing? How are things, unfolding in your life? I love hearing from you guys. If anything resonates, if there's anything you want to share with me, you can always drop it into the chat or into the comment section below. So now that we've wrapped all of this up, let's talk about the current astrology. We've had a new moon in Sagittarius. So you may have noticed that the energy has changed while that new moon was unfolding. And we are still in the thick of it with this Mars in Gemini. The new moon in Sagittarius initiated a new story. Okay. Definitely holds true for me. What is it like for you? I want to know. The new story, wherever it is in your chart, right? It was at 1 degree. So it was definitely a new belief that emerged about the story that you're living, and what you came here with, your purpose. Everybody's got a purpose, which is a really interesting, thing to say, because we have been leading up to this moment all year long. The nodes are still in Taurus and Scorpio and moving through the second decan now. And so now things are becoming a lot more real in our day to day. Pluto is direct. Things are moving forward in a particular timeline, although we cannot really count on whatever we have planned because we are to be malleable and shift with the times. So that is kind of where we're in right now. Mars in Gemini. I want to recap on this. Mars entered Gemini August 20th. Is going to remain here until mid-March. Mars is our action. It's our ambition. It's how we get shit done. How do we handle things? How do we actually take action? What are we focused on? And what goal are we setting? What ambitions do we have? Sometimes we don't think in those terms, but they come up in, we get a sort of a drive or an ambition or a motivation sort of to get something done, to start that conversation, to, organize something, to just set a goal physically. And so this is physical and mental, of course, Mars in Gemini. Mars in Gemini is the type of energy where we're initiating a lot of conversations, but they can be to kind of get a reaction out of somebody. So you may have noticed over the last several weeks that storylines are building and things are kind of crazy, the stuff that we're finding out or the gossip that's going around, or we might be getting involved in some kind of gossip. And we might be sort of in a place where we're like mind blown, that this person is up to this now, or that this person is, coming out with this information. And there's a lot of info that's going back and forth. And in the midst of all of that, the second layer of that is that we're experiencing at this level now people who are kind of forming a false kind of alliance, or they're not even like aware of it. I know that there's some people that that I'm experiencing in my life right now that are like kind of forming alliances with other people where they're not sure what it's all about. They're kind of trying to figure it out. They're trying to kind of have each other's back. But Mars in Gemini, the least fulfilled energy of it, which there's different layers of this energy, right? Depends on your chart, depends on what's happening in your life. It doesn't always have the biggest backbone. Okay. It could be that we are instigating, or that we're, again, in a form of speech with other people, but there's not a whole lot of backbone behind it by the time that Mars moves out of Gemini and then moves into Mars in Cancer. So there could be a lot of sort of this gossip at the highest level, at the worst level, propaganda. We could see that in politics. But that's not where we're at right now. We're actually at a different degree level. And so you could have just witnessed a lot of information and you're questioning this information. Some other good things that are coming out of this transit right now is that a lot of us are having to experience trial and error. Like, we actually have to go communicate. We actually have to go do this thing before we can find out how we actually think about this, like what we think about it, what we believe about it, essentially. That's another thing. And then there is sort of a moment here where we could be finding out and connecting the dots in a particular aspect, whether it's our health, relationships, or whatever aspect it is, right? Could be with money, could be with, our goals, alliances, friends. We are connecting or trying to connect the dots to make sense of the situation that we're in. And so we are finding out information, but we are to wait before we actually settle, because we're still in the retrograde phase. Things are happening right now where they could be a little like mental, you can't figure out exactly where the storyline is going to go because there's so many factors and so many people that are involved in it, and you're trying to connect the dots. The best advice that I have for everyone right now with this Mars and Gemini is to take it moment to moment and day by day. You have to lean into that. And in that moment, you also have to lean into sort of understanding your own ambition, figuring out what your own goals are and what you want out of a situation, what outcomes and expectations that you have will serve you. It will make sure that you are checking in with yourself, because you could be getting kind of caught up in a story that is not your story. And then you're getting involved in that only to find out in March that you should have not wasted your time on it. So this is a really big time, I think, for many of you to just figure out what your ambitions are and what you want out of somebody else or the situation, because essentially there might be something that you want to gain out of it. And why are you doing that thing? What is the end goal? If you're, gossiping about someone, what's the end goal? What is it that has you actually upset about the situation, or why are you doing that? Right? These are the types of things. These are kind of like the shadow qualities right now, but that kind of provide a gold for the future. And changing your mind is totally fine. Changing your mind about a situation, changing the way in which you're thinking about a situation is totally fine right now. And I think I've noticed that with some people that are going through that, especially, with clients that I have that are just changing their mind about stuff. But then there is a fear behind changing that story because we have to adapt. And that brings me to, where Chiron is at. You guys, Chiron is still obviously moving through Aries. There is a new identity that we're building, and there's a good amount of frustration and anger that comes up with that. So paying attention to what is the unspoken during this Mars in Gemini is going to help you unleash sort of an ambition that is actually true, that makes sense in your head, that brings you to a particular outcome that makes you happy. But understanding the why is going to be super important. Okay. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do, you guys, is I am going to be moving through just all the 12 signs, and every prediction is going to be a little bit different. I want to focus on just what sticks out to me, and we're going to be pulling some cards, and I'm going to give you some spiritual advice at the same time. We're going to start with Aries. So, Aries, let's pop Aries up on the chart. So, for Aries and Aries rising, right now, you guys are moving through a big release. Okay. Jupiter, I want to focus on Jupiter for you guys because Jupiter, until, let's see here, Jupiter enters Aries on Tuesday, December 20th. So it re enters Aries, right? But Jupiter was also now in the 12th house, revisiting some of your faith and the spirituality and the things that you've learned about yourself. You kind of went back with Jupiter into the 12th house to make sure that you are actually expanding in the right kind of a way, that this fulfills your, spiritual sense, the meaning of your life, that this is truly the person that you want to become now. So Jupiter drops into the first house, and you guys are going to be in a place where you're going to be very pleased with how things are moving forward now when it comes to good health, when it comes to a good feeling overall, especially as we go into Capricorn season. This is going to help you out a lot. Capricorn season is going to come with a good amount of drive and discipline that is required. And so for you guys, this Jupiter moving back into the first house is going to feel really good in the sense that you realize what you want to spend your time and energy on. And it has a lot to do with you right now, with your vitality and your health. And in general, the journey that you are creating at this time, the things that you're wanting to attract and make better about yourself, it's a good time to really focus on it. Okay. So let's move on to Taurus. Taurus, for you guys, I want to focus on Neptune right now. Neptune is in your 11th house. There is going to be a moment here, I think, for many of you where you're going to start to see that it is time for you to focus on where you don't necessarily hold the best boundaries in groups. Okay. There could be some group dynamics going on right now where you feel a little bit like you don't know what's going on. You don't know what it is that you have gotten yourself involved in. A lot of you may be involved in situations that have to do with friends, have to do with your social reputation now taking on a new role in a way, or some kind of, future goal that you are creating. But like, is this making sense? Where do you even start, right? Well, where you start is by you taking a step back and trying to understand what decisions are coming up. This is key for a lot of you. You need to figure out what decisions you need to make in order to either preserve something about your social reputation that you don't want to necessarily change, but you feel like, there could be like this conversation internally happening right now where you're like, am I going to have to change this? Or you may have to examine relationships that are communicating things to you that don't resonate. Okay. This is going to be key for many of my Taurus friends. You have to pay attention what you're getting yourself involved in, especially if you're in new group settings or something new that is emerging. Let it play out a little bit before you fully 100% commit, because you might discover that where you were actually was a better place. Gemini. Okay, Gemini. I want to focus on Saturn for you guys. Why do I say that? Because Saturn right now, okay, is in a spot where in your ninth house, you guys are now realizing where you are too restricted when it comes to how you believe in life, of what's actually possible for you and your journey and your entire like story. There's moments here that you're going to discover over the next several weeks that you are blocking yourself. You're get in the way of you envisioning something, and then how are you talking to yourself? You might be talking yourself out of certain things that that you need to take action on, but you're not taking the action on. Okay. Which we're seeing here with the Ace of Diamonds. Okay. The Ace of Diamonds is the card that I pulled for you. The Ace of Diamonds is some of you want to make a big move, but you're like scared. Okay. My message to you is where Saturn is at right now and how Saturn is going to move through the sky for you guys. This is a time for you to really ground yourself and know that if you put the work in, despite the doubt, if you put the work in, despite anything that you're talking yourself out of, you're going to reap the rewards, especially over the next 3 months. Your life could ridiculously change in such a good way. You must, though, take the action, and you must take that big, bold step. If you're wanting to move, if you're wanting to ask for that promotion, I mean, for some of you, it might be cutting a relationship off, right? Like, it's going to be a little bit different for many of the Geminis, but right now is really a time for you guys to pay attention to where are you most afraid and why, and then go do it anyway. Like, despite the fear, you just got to do it. Okay. You got to push forward. You got to do it, because you're going to find that in that process, you're going to start to learn a lot about yourself and how your beliefs actually hold you back right now, and what you need to break through in order to see that that belief was actually not true. Okay. There's something else that's possible, but there is sort of this barrier right now that you're working through. Let's move on to Cancer. For Cancer, we are going to be discussing Mars in Gemini in your 12th house. This is a time for you where you feel like maybe you're running around a little bit in circles. The reason for that is because let me have a little bit of water. The reason for that is because you guys are just starting to realize just now that your life and the meaning of your life and everything that you've built up to this moment, you want things to change so much that there is a specific spiritual aspect and a faith aspect that is missing. Not that you don't have it, okay, but it's something that this Mars in Gemini is bringing you, and it's totally screwing the way in which you're thinking about things, okay? It's kind of screwing, it's kind of messing with it. What is that? And it goes way back into a time in your life where for many of you, it's not going to be true for all. Okay. Again, I just want to emphasize that. But for many of you, you've taken on something happened, like you've taken on a big belief that wasn't actually true. And it was a boundary crossing that happened. Somebody that wanted you to believe something, somebody that wanted you to, get business done or certain things done based on their faith, based on their belief and their, spiritual point of view, but it has nothing, it's not true for you. And so if you can't remember what that time frame is, this can be a really good time for you to dive deep into unlocking where you mentally block yourself from just feeling free spiritually and in your faith too. There's like this blockage, this like reoccurring thing, and it's tied into someone who was outwardly very powerful, okay? But maybe inwardly, like they're in the inside of who they are, their heart space, a total like coward person, okay? One scenario. The second thing is, the other thing that I'm seeing for a lot of the cancers right now is that you're maybe looking to build a different sort of career goal or a different outlook on your career or some kind of new strategy. Go for it. Why are you waiting? Go for it. Do the thing that you want to do. If you're wanting to open that business, go do it. There's a lot of thinking that I see with this Mars and Gemini that is going on because there could be like this imposter sort of syndrome type of thing going on, like, who am I to do that? Like, that's a big step for me. Like, I don't know if I can do it. Yeah. You know, yes, the time is really perfect for that, but you have to lean into making sure that you're really checking in with yourself and the things that bring you peace, the things that, make you feel good, double down on that. Make sure that you're building upon that. And you have to make peace with the situation I just talked about. There's something here that happened that messed in the way in which, you're living your life, and it has to do with your faith and your spirituality. So once you get in touch with that, once you understand that, you're going to start to dissolve some of that, energy, some of the blockages that you could be experiencing. The last thing I do want to say is a lot that comes up here for my Cancer friends is that you could be dealing with someone who does have something going on as far as their mental health could be impacted. There could be a lot of stresses going on in the background where you kind of have to hold the pieces together for this person. This thing is going to pass. It's only temporary. We pulled a temporary card with the Four of Hearts for this particular situation. It's only going to be temporary. So just know, okay? Things are going to start to move forward, and they're going to move forward fast starting mid-January. You will not have to worry about this aspect anymore. So I wanted to just give you that message as well. Leo. Leo, let's move forward. What do I want to talk about? Looking at your chart over here. Okay. I do want to talk about Chiron for you guys. Okay. Chiron is moving through your ninth house right now. This is going to be a time where who you are is changing. Okay. Not that you didn't know that before, but you now are having to kind of face some fears about being more assertive with your big vision, your life goals. A lot of this stuff is going to continue to change, and it will actually have there's some outside forces or relationship dynamics that will force you to change who you've been up until this point. And for many of you, there is a fear here that if you move forward now in a different way, are you going to lose an aspect about yourself that you really love? The answer is, I don't know. Do you know? Right? You will not know until you actually go into this new phase in your life and accept all the things that come with it. But there is this fear that you might lose this aspect about yourself. And I would say that the best way to go about it is to realize, yeah, things are changing. And the more that you lean into the changes, the better it will become, because you are to overcome right now these aspects that create attachment. And a lot of it will have to do with the way in which other people view you as well. Okay. Or some kind of freedom that you have had, but you know that that kind of definition of freedom is changing because you are taking on a set of responsibilities and this will have to do with your relationships. You're taking on more responsibility. And so you have to be relied on in a way where that definition is changing. And so that scares you a bit. And so right now with the King of Spades, which is the card that fell out for you guys, this is a time to break down those barriers that, you know, didn't know you needed to break down, because that's an old version of yourself. There's a new version that's emerging, and it is going to be a good one. A lot will be learned out of this. And so lean into the fear right now and make sure that you are understanding that the changes that are happening are going to be for the better, and anything that you're holding on to might be time to let go that gets in the way of you really defining a new definition of your life, you know? And so that is like a really big message for a lot of you. I'm just going to let that land with you. Let's move forward to Virgo. More to come, you guys. More to come. Let's see. Virgo. What a time, Virgo. I want to talk about the North Node and Uranus dancing and moving together in your ninth house. Perhaps you have now realized that your role and purpose is changing even so. And what is changing in particular about it is that you realize you're not having enough fun. Many of you are just realizing now, and you're waking up to this part of your life that you're really holding yourself all back all the time. You're like playing it safe over and over again. And you may have heard this now a million times, but hearing it a million times sometimes doesn't make a difference. You have to move through the energy spaces and the phases of each of the moon cycles, of each of the squares, of each of the oppositions. But this one in particular, with Sagittarius being at 1 degree, okay, which started a brand new story for you guys. All right, when it comes to the way in which you are fulfilling, okay, on your comfort zones, but then also the, family dynamics that kind of play into it, where you realize, okay, well, this is something that was holding me back way back then. This is how I was kind of raised. It plays into this North Node and Uranus dance that is happening right now, because you're really just pulling down sort of the armor that you have built around you to let people really more in to your world and to share with them. And this time is happening now. When the new moon is happening in Capricorn, this is now going to start to open up a whole new heart space for you, where you might feel a lot more disciplined in all the right ways. You see, it's not that you lack discipline, but the discipline of having enough fun in your life, the discipline of doing the things that you really love and doing the thing that you want to do. You know, not doing the thing that other people want you to do, but doing the thing that you want to do. This is like huge. And I think that this is a process that you're going through because you are changing your point of view big time about where and what the next chapter is going to be in your life. And there could be some people that are coming in right now that are ready and willing to help you and kind of support you in that process, that have very practical ways of doing this, and you can learn a lot from them. And so allow for that to happen, right? Don't get in the way, because this is a time for you to really build upon a good foundation. 4 of diamonds is a foundation card. Some things are moving out of your life, so they're going to come with their own breakdowns, but nothing new, nothing that you didn't expect. And this will also tie into old kind of focuses that you've had in your work, or something that you felt responsible, or you wanted to kind of like build this thing out. It was a part of your life. It was part of your identity. Some of those things are just going to completely move out because the time is done, And so now you're moving in a new direction. It's going to be a good one. And this is a time right now for many of you. The message is like, take on all the support, that you can get, because This is a big time for you to prep for 2023. Like so many good things are coming to you guys. I can just see it. You know, you've been through a lot, especially relationship dynamics. All that stuff is behind you now. If anything at all, the person that's going to hold you back is going to be you. It's going to be nobody else because, you know, you know who is who and who is what. You don't even have to worry about it anymore. Now it's all about you having the discipline to live your life exactly the way that you want to. And that's the final message here. Let's move on to Libra. Okay, Libra. You know, Libra, I want to talk about that South Node in Scorpio in your second house. It's not just about money. It's about a deep sense of worth. Okay. And what is worthy. Okay. What the worth of things are, but what is worthy, right? In your life. Like what's the deep sense? There's a very big change and shift that is happening to money and commitments to money. And many of you, okay, many of you are out there, you are thinking about like, how can you make more money? Um, how can you finally live the kind of lifestyle that you want? Get the things that you want, but not necessarily because like you're into material things, but it's more about you now have a different connection to money. You see the crisis situations that you were in. You see the sacrifices you've made for other people without any return. Any return. It wasn't balanced at all. And so this is a time in your life now that you are changing the definition of your own worth because you realize that if you are in a place that actually is solid, foundation money wise, okay, money foundation wise, you can actually step up your game a bit more. You can help other people more. But if you are not in a place where, and this is sort of the lessons with this, you know, South Node in Scorpio right now, if you are not in a place where you feel, you know, solid, like you actually have power over the money situation that you're in, which you've been in those situations. So now that whole definition is changing, especially when that new moon in Capricorn is starting out. You are going to expand your entire comfort zone of how to make money and partnerships with that as well, because you guys are going to get a little bit more like cutthroat when it comes to this, because you also realize who has been taking advantage of you, who's been taking advantage of sort of the kindness of your heart. A lot of you out there, you are generous. You are very generous. You have a lot of great ideas. You have a lot of sort of enthusiasm that you bring to your relationships, to groups, to friends, to all the people around you. But like, this is not the time to let others sort of in on all of your ideas. This is a time to really rebuild yourself financially, but it goes deeper than that because you realize there's some things in your life that make you feel really good and they come through the material sense, you know, because they provide a particular emotion and it has to do with safety. So for many of you, this is sort of the time right now to open up that channel, to open up that pathway, to open up, you know, this path that there is actually nothing in the way. Like you can create more financial freedom and you can create more financial sort of safety. And it's all on you. And I predict that for many of you, you're going to really start this process with this next moon cycle. And that's going to start the new moon in Capricorn at 1. It's also the day where Chiron goes direct, Friday, December 23rd. So right before Christmas. It's exciting. All right, this iPad might die. And it sure did. Let me plug it in. Hold on 1 second, guys. All right. Next sign we are going to be talking about is going to be Scorpio. Okay. I have to say, for all my Scorpio friends out there, I feel like you guys are, you may have taken on a new project or some kind of new, a new love in a way. And whatever you have taken on is making you realize that you have to end the relationship to another aspect of your life, but you may not know exactly when or how to go about it. I would say that this is going to take probably well into January and then beginning of February, maybe even. I see that for many of you, you're going to start to realize that past attachments for what how you identified, how you portray yourself to other people, especially in relationships, all of that stuff is going to be, it's like in the changing phase. You felt it, but now you start to feel, starting this particular new moon in Capricorn, you're going to start to feel that, okay, now I'm going to change really the way in which I'm thinking about, you know, myself and how I portray myself, what I show to other people about myself. There's like a prepping phase. I feel like a lot of you are like in a prepping phase, almost like you're going to start to show a different side about yourself, but this requires for you to travel alone for a moment. And what I mean by that is that some of you could be, you know, you have to sort of think about it, and there has to be a strategy about it. And so this strategy is unfolding, and more of the clarity and the answers you're looking for as far as timelines. This has to do with timelines. This has to do with you just asking yourself, like, when and how are you going to kind of take action on this next step where you're parting from certain aspects of your life that they need to you either need to part from, like, the title that you have for whatever groups or even social reputation or the way in which you portray yourself that's attached to that, or you are parting in a way where you might have to cut it out completely. So these are the types of answers you're looking for when that new moon in Capricorn is going to unfold, which is going to be in your third house. This is when you're going to start to realize, okay, there's a moment that becomes super clear of how you're going to do it. Again, it's going to take you a little while to execute or to really follow through on that. And this has to do with the environment that you're in, has to do with the people that are around you. There's some other things that you're worried about and you don't know exactly how. You want to make sure that you're, setting everybody else up for success. I hope that this makes sense. That is something that is going to come up as well, because there's other relationships that are involved that are really important to you. So you don't want to kind of do something that leaves people in a place where they don't know how to handle it. Something like this is coming up. Okay. All right. Moving on to, my iPad is stuck. Sagittarius. Let's move on to Sagittarius. Boy, the first thing that pops into my head is patience. And you had to have patience for many of you. All right. And this has a lot to do with relationship dynamics in particular, specific relationships. There have been maybe even some blockages when it comes to contracts, you guys. Some of you may have been in some kind of business dealing or business contract or some kind of business situation where there are restrictions going on with that. And you're like, wow, I don't know how to move forward from this. The answers are coming. Wait until January, because that's when, Mars starts to gain some speed moving forward again. You're going to start to know exactly how to get out of certain contracts, or what is happening with that contract situation. There might be a solution that you didn't think about that comes in, but it comes through an outside source. That Mars in Gemini in your seventh house is really, it's a trippy time because you are finding out a lot. There's a lot of people from the past, but also a lot of new people. And it reminds you of situations in the past. Like, there is so much going on and so many things that people are telling you that are just mind blowing right now. And wow, But you got to let go of some of those stories, because right now you're in this place where you have to be careful on who you're listening to. You also have to be careful of like not falling into the same trap with certain relationship dynamics, because like people told you, which is a situation that I feel like some of you are still dealing with. There are some business partners or people who, wanted to do business with you, or people who were kind of in a partnership alongside with you in a business that told you stuff, you believed it, you didn't question it because there was nothing to question, because my goodness, they were very good in telling you exactly, what the idea of a good like work environment, a good partnership is. And then all of a sudden, things changed. And so you're trying to still straighten a situation out that requires for you to negotiate. And so right now is not the time to take action on it. Right now is the time to kind of sit back and, grab a bag of popcorn and let things unfold. But you're going to hear a lot, and you have already heard a lot of things that, make you really question what your daily lifestyle is going to be moving forward, because things are changing. You have that North Node and Uranus in your sixth house. Things are changing a lot in the way in which your lifestyle is. And so let things unfold right now. That King of Clubs is a time where you can't attach to a particular story. You just got to kind of zoom out and really listen from a bigger perspective, because you are moving into a position or into a next chapter where you will be heard and you will be listened to. There could be some kind of a fear that might not be something that you're going to be able to fulfill on, but you will. Okay. That is something that I wanted to just share with everybody here. Capricorn. All right, Capricorn. What a reset time. That's what this is. You have a new moon in Capricorn at 1 degrees coming in strong. Okay. It's all going to unfold, obviously, in your first house. The first house is the vitality, the body, the journey, the way in which you build an image. Okay. That, like that is how you interact with the world. This is who you are. But there is a huge reset that's happening. So you're not necessarily undergoing huge changes as far as the way in which you are interacting with people, or changing something about yourself that is so like transformational, but it's a huge reset that you're diving into. And this reset has to do with relationships, your magnetism, the way in which you communicate. There's a new goal that is going to come up here. And this new goal requires for you to put the work in the next several months, and to not settle for anything less than your vision. I think many of you already know that, but there could be some kind of influences from the outside, or some kind of friends or social reputation type of thing coming up, where you might question what it is that, you are wanting to reset on. Don't worry. The outside is just noise right now. Right now is a time for you to really focus, and to also maybe not share with everybody everything that you're up to. Not that you do too much of that already, but just be mindful of who you're sharing what with, because this is a time for you to pull your energy in a little bit, reset, and then regain some stamina, because that's what this is about. Because some of you could have felt with this Mars, in Gemini, that so much is going on. And it's like right now, even like getting half through the day, you're like, I'm exhausted. It's not so much even in the physical sense. It's just like every detail, every communication, everything that's going on in the day to day could be just freaking a lot. So make sure that you take care of yourself during this time. It's, again, a huge reset button. I don't see too many like bad things here, like, or anything that could be in the way or anything like that. I just think for many of you, there's a huge reset. Okay. Aquarius. Interesting things unfolding for you. Now, of course, right before your season, you are flushing everything out. You're processing the whole entire year. You are taking a look at your life, and you are reflecting. And that is exactly what Capricorn season is bringing you. Now, during this time, you are going to heavily think about your career. And there are specific circumstances with your career, your ambition, and your legacy that you are going to part. You're going to close that chapter. The chapter is closing. There's something that is going to come up here over the next 6 weeks or so. You're going to finally close this chapter. You're going to close the door. You're going to move on, which is great news. And look at that, 10 of diamonds. You're moving on from this situation. You learned what you needed to learn. You may have even made some financial mistakes with this thing that I'm talking about right here. Old business partnerships and then money that you could have gained that you didn't gain because it didn't feel right. Something like this, as a review is coming up, you're going to close the chapter with that. You will know that this is not something you're vibing with anymore. You will never have someone cross your boundary this way again. You're closing that chapter. You're moving on. A huge reset time for you guys. And also a big time for you now to start creating and beginning again. It's a huge beginning again type of energy that you are experiencing. And that is all pouring into your third house. That's where Jupiter is at. Okay. So this is amazing. And also, you will find a new money source. Right now seems like maybe a small idea, but it's going to turn into something bigger. So some of you needed to hear that. Follow through on your ideas. Pisces. Pisces, Pisces, Pisces. I see a lot of new and fresh energy pouring into your social reputation, and also a new ambition that's starting to kick in when it comes to long-term goals. And this will also have a lot to do with your money and how you want to make money. But the thing that is so interesting is you will have to sort of do things very different now. Who you are when it comes to money and making money, that energy needs to change. The manifestation around that needs to change. And that is a realization that's going to start to kick in big time when you come into Capricorn season. So right after Christmas, you're going to start to realize, oh, I was thinking maybe in too small terms of making money, or I was thinking in a way where I didn't consider everything I needed, or I didn't consider everything I could maybe would need later down the road. That this is something that is going to start to kick in here for you. It's a huge epiphany that your lifestyle, your ideas around your particular lifestyle, your ideas around who you are within that lifestyle is changing, and it requires a particular type of effort. And this effort will change the way in which you are living, your comfort zones, what's happening at home. It's going to change all of that up. Okay. Now, this is going well into the next like 6 months. For many of you, this is like a big shift. Okay. I see that you are going to be in a place where I think you will appreciate all the effort that you're going to put in later. But right now, it just might feel a little bit like it's a lot. At times it's overwhelming. At times it's like I just need a timeout. Maybe you do. And this is a time to kind of push yourself a little bit to move into a new territory when it comes to money making, when it comes to your identity with that too, the idea of who you are and who you need to become in order to make a different kind of, a different kind of level of money or a different kind of outcome that you're trying to create. And your social reputation is going to tie into it as well. So you have to maybe, if you were not someone who was like business mind oriented, you might be business mind oriented now, you're learning all of that now and it's going to benefit you. But at first it might feel a little bit unnatural. And that is, I think, the biggest message for you guys right now at this time. I am going to pull one last message And this is going to be for the new moon in Capricorn. This is going to be for the collective. I've shared this already. I have this deck. It's called the Universe Illusion. I love this deck because it has images on there. We're going to pull one card. I'm going to shuffle just one more time. One image, one card from the top to see, what other thing we need to know about the new moon in Capricorn. So for everyone who is on the podcast, who is not seeing the image, here is a woman who is rising at night in the moonlight out of the ocean water. And she is reaching with her arms towards the sky, and it looks like angel wings. Beautiful message. And what a beautiful image to finish today's reading on. Many of you are in this place where you are quite literally in a shadow period in your life. And everything that you had to learn and that you had to absorb, which is what the moon is about. When we take a look at the moon's job is to absorb energies and to communicate and assimilate and make us understand from a deep level, on an emotional level, and that kind of a frequency. So we have absorbed a lot. We have learned a lot. We have assimilated a lot. And now we're going to start to build back up. All of this is going to start to build back up. The astrology is mind-blowing between now and May, and more on that later. But right now, I just want you to know that if you are in a place where you are questioning the heartbreaks you've gone through, the worries that you still have, the questions you're asking yourself, if you'll ever really be able to get out of some of the situations that you're in, the message is, yes, you will. This is a time that you may have had to experience in order to learn something very profound about yourself and your spirit and who you are. And so now this is going to be a time where you're rising above these circumstances. And there's a new story that's unfolding that is going to be about your own personal strength, which ties into 2023, which is a 7 universal number. That's what we're moving into. We're moving into a 7-year that has a lot to do with yourself and your own truth. And you being able to have the stamina and resilience to adapt to anything that might happen that is new, that might help you to shift even more into new territories in your life that will help you to learn more, to appreciate more, to move into a beautiful space where a definition of happiness is there that you've never experienced before. These are the things that we're prepping for. And that's the note that I want to leave you on. Thank you so much for everyone who has joined me today on the live. I appreciate you guys. I will be back with your individual horoscopes. Sending so much love to you. I love everyone here. Thank you so much for being here. If you have not subscribed yet, subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell. What are you waiting for? There's enough room and space for the Aylin Sky Astro fam. So I would love for you to be a part of it. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.